This is Jo Cool for her next installment here for the U.S. Book Show, sponsored by Publishers Weekly, standing in front of what used to be the place of a statue for Dr. James Marion Sims, the father of gynecology. Statue was removed because he did his experiments on enslaved black women. I'm standing actually in front of also the New York Academy of Medicine, where the conference is taking place. So why am I here? So the U.S. Book Show is a place for mostly traditional publishing to gather editors, publishers, marketing agents, etc., to talk about trends in publishing, all those sort of good things, networking. Not so much for authors, though there are author tickets, not pitched to authors particularly because they don't want authors pitching at this event. I am certainly not there for that. I am there as an indie publisher. So why do I say indie publisher and I don't say self-publisher? Because we are publishers. A lot of us that do self-publish have businesses, have LLCs. We hire people to make our books with us. We hire copy editors, we hire proofreaders, we hire cover designers, interior designers, marketing teams sometimes. And in my case, I sometimes collaborate and hire sequential artists or publish the art of artists, so publisher. So I'm excited to hear about what's going on in the publishing world, trends. I kind of do things Zorba the Greek way, but I'm smart enough to also keep a pulse on what the rest of the folks are doing. So we'll update you on how this day goes. I am back home from the U.S. Book Show, sponsored by Publishers Weekly. I was going to do this whole content creation, walking through Central Park, home, with the movement and everything. I was so tired. I was so drained in a good way. I was hungry. I needed to come home, so I'm in my home clothes, and I put my badge on for this video, and wanted to give a very abbreviated, but not really because I kind of go on, recap for what this U.S. Book Show was all about. It was really interesting. It was really exciting to be there as myself, as an indie author. This was a very traditional publishing place. On a superficial level, love seeing all the fabulous people, love seeing the beautiful outfits, the suits, the tans, the artsy outfits. I love stuff like that. And I love the New York Academy of Medicine. It's a very fabulous place to be. But yeah, let's go through some of the panels that I went through. First of all, the opening, which I did. My name is Stephanie Nina Pizzarillos, by the way. Janice Point Press, debut novel To Love Like Venus, in case you're watching this and you don't know who I am. But you probably do, right? The opening had a bunch of CEOs from different publishing companies, give their remarks on their thoughts about where publishing is, where the future of publishing professionals are. This was moderated by Jonathan Segura, editorial director of Publishers Weekly, and included panelists Madeline McIntosh, Dominique Rocca, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, and David Shelley. And I posted some of this, but some of the takeaways was that, today publishers, in terms of hires of young professionals, their opinions were they're actually looking for curious learners, not necessarily niche experts, the art history majors, not negating that, but just saying, are you a curious learner? And one panelist said, we're looking for people with a startup mentality. They did note that one person noted that the whole anti-DEI thing, strictly speaking, not from a human perspective, I will always take a human perspective, by the way, but from a business and data perspective, that the data shows DEI's place in publishing is that it increases sales, more efficiency. And they talked about other things as well. This was very much data. It seemed like very AI heavy in its programming, and some of us talked about that outside of the panel. Some of us felt some were quite dystopian and were disagreeing with what was being presented, whether you were a publisher for years, editor for years, or the younger generation a lot of us were talking outside, somewhat alarmed by what we were hearing, but it was interesting in getting that data, and I will get there. One of the more interesting panels was the data-driven publisher turning insights into hits. I really should have brought my readers. Hold on. And with that Gen X pause, that panel was absolutely packed. And actually, this entire conference was absolutely packed. Super turnout. People were talking about within the audience how they were so shocked by how so many people attended. Perhaps Publishers Weekly will give thought for next year if they need a bigger space or having people sign up before for the panels, because there was no room in these rooms. People were standing in the back, and one of those panels in particular was the data-driven publisher turning insights into hits. This was moderated by the very well-known Gene Friedman, and included panelists Krista Desir, Keith Reigert, Ben Severe, and David Walter. Lots of information about data. I can't quote from my notes here what went with what, but some of the interesting takeaways for this, I felt really resonated with To Love Like Venus and this character, Alita, whose role, that's my novel, whose role is in intelligence assistance to AI. So it's flipping what AI is to actually being the second hand of AI to actually make sense of data. And that's what was the big takeaway of this panel, that interpreting the data is more important than first glance of data. And if it wasn't that panel, it was a different panel. I'm looking at my notes. I'm looking at the program here. They used the example of heated rivalry, that it's not so much about a sports romance. If you just look at the surface data AI, oh yeah, sports romance. It's more about the couple. And that data is found in Reader Insight. I'm not sure if it was this panel that mentioned the usefulness of how retailers examining human behavior in their stores actually informs publishers and what's moving. So data is not cold first number facts. You need a human interpreter, which is what Alita Melusine is in my novel, and understanding that the data alone needs a human to interpret it, at least at this point. Emphasizing that when working with publishers, you lose control of your data because publishers don't share. So that was one of the downsides of actually working with traditional publishing. If you're a self-publisher and you're used to owning your own data, etc., you lose that when you work with a publisher. I think another panel I went to was also an AI panel from CEO to GEO, optimizing books for AI discovery. That was presented by Cameron Lennon from Zahn Publishing. That was a very efficient panel. Boy, data. A lot was presented in that, as well as the AI lunch summit. We ate lunch while listening to a panel, so there was no break in this. Didn't have a breather. That's also why I left at around 4 o'clock. Your girl was hungry. She needed her protein. There was no break here. Even lunch was sitting and listening to panels. All love, but I need to eat and I need to decompress. But anyway, AI Lunch Summit was Super Abundance and Super Discoverability. That was moderated by Brooke Dobson and panelists Regina Brooks, Marcus Dole, Emma House, Samir Patel, and Keith Reigert. I will say that one was, I'm going to use and quote somebody that I spoke to after, quite dystopian in listening to it. The audience, or at least my table, was like, what the F? We don't agree with that. It was interesting to get that information. I think I'm skipping here, but I'm just going to say that in these conversations with AI, it smells a lot like artificial problems with equally artificial solutions. This idea that inefficiency and opaqueness, use terms that were described at the publishing industry, and AI is going to be the savior. These are boogeyman terms, uses problems in publishing, and totally loses sight of the art and human element of what publishing is. I think most alarming to me was hearing, throwing out this as a failure, that out of 10 books being published, 7 of a publisher are failures, that's the word used, and 3 are the ones making money, because that's defined as success, and that this is inefficient and needs to be solved in publishing. And I do understand this is a business, but this is also art, this is also academics, this is also intellectualism, this is also being human. And the audience, from my conversations outside, wasn't absolutely receptive to this thought that we should be totally data-driven, efficient. I mean, yeah, I'm sure we're going to have to find a middle ground between how publishing was done in the past and where we're moving, etc. But it was quite scary hearing, using AI to find what's hot, what's trending, and putting more of our efforts there. I think there is something to data. I think there's something to do responsibly with AI, but I very much felt that this was a push a lot of times to embrace AI as a problem solver, and I never heard about the environmental consequences for all of these things, and there was no regard to human jobs lost as well. I know that's a whole conversation. I'm just giving you some sort of extras. If you are an author or a self-publisher looking for some tips in one of the AI panels, and what you could be doing to better help assist AI as a reality of how readers are finding new books, putting text overlay on all, I can't read my handwriting, questions, on all images and videos, because that's how AI reads things. I didn't realize that. I have to Google if text overlay is the new language for captions, but using text overlay helps AI actually read what your book's about to then help readers find it, because people are using questions to find books and using AI. Also, utilizing the question and answer section for your metadata. AI uses that in this section, so definitely populate it. Don't ignore it. I'm just repeating what's in the panel. I'm not telling you to do this. GEO is the new thing. Make sure your genre is named, comp authors are named, the reader experience is named. Don't just throw out key terms. You actually have to use things that help readers understand, why is this book for you? You need to use those narratives. It was also recommended, if you block bot crawlers, you are not citable by AI, and AI needs to see work that is citable and see that the New York Times actually wrote an article about you, and you cite that and you put that in. They didn't talk about copyright of putting a full New York Times article on your site, but I didn't understand that. But just FYI, it was a big push on how to optimize your metadata and all that sort of fun stuff for AI to be able to read it, because that's how people are doing searches. My question is that how people are doing searches, or is that how corporations like Google are forcing searches on us because you're including that in the software as the default? Let's see, what else? It was also fun to go to panels like Reading is Social Again, Building Community in the Platform Age. That was moderated by Kristen Fassler. It had Nicole Antos, Karen Kang of TikTok, Nicole Antos with Podium Entertainment, Oriana Leckert of Kickstarter. Yes, I was so happy to see Kickstarter there and Oriana there. Patrick Milgram of Substack, Lisa Sharkey of Harper Influence. Interesting conversations on how building community. I found the most interesting question from the audience, like all fine and dandy. It was actually for Own Your Audience, not this one, but since I mentioned it, I'm going to say it. Own Your Audience, reimagining the direct-to-reader relationship. The big question in that panel was, okay, you're talking about owning your data and newsletters. Generation Alpha does not read email. So what are we supposed to do? That was actually a very interesting conversation, and basically the answer was go to Substack and TikTok, but you won't own the data. But that's something to look for. But back to the Reading is Social Again. I kind of know this. I kind of felt this. I've known this for a while. This panel, this conference verified analog is in with the new generation. Kickstarter was emphasizing what Kickstarter does best, building community, supporting the person behind it, all the frills, the tangible, the things that you can only get in a pre-order campaign with Kickstarter. So that was fun. For the Own Your Audience, that was moderated by Catherine Fellon, Sarah, and it was with panelists Sarah Arbuthnot, apologies, Etene Brialt, and Aparna Rishi. And of course, there is more. On a personal level, like I said, I was super hungry. I need my food. I need my protein. I need my fine china and silverware when I eat my freaking lunch. I'm a woman that's used to eating 3 lamb chops and some eggs by 11 a.m. because I'm hungry and I like my protein. So I did have to leave a little bit early so that I could come home to my chicken and rice and some collard greens and a salad on top of that. Thank you, husband, for having that ready with my coordination. Thank you, daughter, for pointing out that I had lettuce stuck in my teeth that have been there since my lunch. So every time I smiled and met people, I had lettuce in my teeth. Gotta love that. You gotta laugh at that. But really interesting. I was drained. I totally think I did a Spock mind meld with a person who, once he smiled at me, I felt I totally inhabited his entire publishing career from editor to agent. And I had to know if I was correct in what his role was in publishing. I was pretty sure it was nonfiction. And I had to ask him his client list, and he confirmed it was nonfiction. And I felt like I needed to go to sleep because I just felt like I lived this life of this person just by the way he smiled. And whether it's just I have an active imagination and looked at his suit, and I just lived that whole life, and I was so drained at the end. And that's my little woo-woo addition to when I attend these things. I sometimes connect with people, or I can't turn off my writer mind, and I'm calling and I'm like, can you pick me up? Like, I'm so drained. This is fun. Met wonderful people. And yeah, had a lot of fun. I got another conference to do tomorrow, so I also needed to recharge my batteries. It is Latino Focus. I am hoping there's some hot food there. I might sneak some of my hard-boiled eggs in there just in case, because your girl needs her protein. This was another installment of Jo Cool and her publishing adventures and going to conferences, and I'll see you tomorrow. Stephanie Nina Pizzarillos, Janice Camp.